Hey guys, we are back. Delayed, but back. This is Ted Bogert with The Ted Show, of course, and I am here with David Hennessey, who's coming to us from a beautiful part of the world. But we're not going to talk about that. We want to talk about David. We want to talk about the wonder technique. I think that you will be as inspired as I was when I read through some of what David does. So I'm very excited to have you on the show, and so thankful you were flexible. Welcome.
Thank you, Ted. I'm honored to be here. I'm very, very happy to be here, and no problem with me being flexible, and just happy to have the opportunity to share with your audience. So,
I love it. So
and
you can
make a
hear a little
difference.
bit of little bit of that accent, guys. I know later on you're going to go, "Where's he from?" Well, he's going to tell you. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your background, David, because it's fascinating.
Okay. Well, the overview in terms of the voice, and now we're talking about it, it might adjust itself. I've lived in three different countries. So I was born in Ireland, then I moved to Canada, and I currently live in the south of France. And so I've lived in three different cultures, and they're all very different. Even though two of them, of course, were in the English language. And now in France, I actually live in a village where there's less than 2,000 people, and I'm the only native English speaker.
Wow,
Yeah.
you
And
really
that's
are
an
deep in it.
experience. Yeah. This is an experience too, because I learned the French language in conversation. And going to your audience, I know some people might be thinking, even if they wonder, David, what can you really make a change in your life with? And I will say the one thing that's really going to change your life is the motivation you have to do something. Really, really important. And some people will say, well, why did I learn the French language? And I'll tell you the truth. Why I learned the French language is because my children always speak in the French language together. And those of people who are listening that are parents, do you imagine if your children were speaking and you couldn't understand what they were saying?
I would
Those little
not have liked
stories.
that.
You just have no idea what's going on, and all the little stories they're sharing about school and about their friends. So I thought I got to learn the language, and I just literally threw myself in the conversation. And the French people are very, acceptable to my stumbling and my accent that's very strange still when I speak in French. But let's put it this way: now I can argue in French, so my level of French must be okay.
All right, so
Not to say
tell us,
I'm arguing all the time in French. So
why did you try? How did you end up being in three different cultures?
okay, this is there's different reasons for each one. I moved from Ireland to Canada as a teenager because my dad, bless his soul, because he's passed away since, he felt that Canada was a better place to be. And he was right, because we left Ireland in the 1980s and the economy was terrible in Ireland. This predates the Celtic Tiger, which some people may be aware of, when the economy really boomed in Ireland. And so he anticipated that the economy would be better. And I moved to British Columbia, Canada, the west side. So still English speaking people. Some people think Canada, Montreal? No, not at all. So no French. No French was in my brain when I came to France. So I moved and I lived there for a long time. And it's a beautiful place. If anybody wants the recommendation, I mean, I spent a lot of time in my life in the mountains and around British Columbia, past the Rockies, up north towards, which is fantastic. And then I ended up moving to France, actually, and that was a very sudden decision. That was in 2009. In January, we decided to move to France because my mother-in-law was really ill, and she needed us to be there. And that was in April the same year we were in France. Like, I gave up everything. And looking back on it, it's something I actually say to my children: Dad done certain things in his life that you don't want to do. Okay. So moving to another country when you work professionally with people all the time in English, okay, when you know how the system works, how everything is, it's just, life is so easy, work is going great. You move to another country where you don't speak the language, you don't know how anything works, you just move there because you want to help somebody. It's you do something for the sake of your heart, but you end up going into struggle. And I did end up going into a lot of challenges, and I'm very, very grateful that those challenges are past, but there was a lot of stuff that happened. So I have a lot of experience to dip into, to help people from different backgrounds and different cultures and such. And I've also traveled a lot.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the word wonder. What was your profession for you to move. People, I didn't do, this. You probably heard the joke if you've watched the show. I don't do a lot of research. Most of it gets spent on maybe good French wine, on my R&D money, or Italian wine.
Probably a good
But
decision.
what were you? Right. I mean, what were you doing? What has been your background profession? Because you obviously didn't create, I don't believe, the Wonder Technique when you first started out professionally.
Actually, well, the Wonder Technique is 20 years ago I started.
Wow, it's been a long
Yes,
time.
it has been. And in fact, most people don't know this, but all my work that I ever did was through conferences. I was hired for many, many different conferences, and I've been doing many different events in North America. And then, of course, when I moved to France, couldn't say anything because I couldn't speak the language. And then what happened is really recently, and I'm very grateful that I connected with yourself, Ted, is I'm not so active on social media. That is really by a choice because it helps manage and control my time. Because I
Sure.
like to invest more of my time with clients and also with my family, and in particular developing new tools and techniques, because my program, the Wonder Technique, is much more than just an idea. The whole idea is I've developed stuff over the last 20 years that is a way of helping people reframe things, but make things simpler for people to understand, because there's a lot of information out there on how to do personal development. And I've looked for the thread that kind of goes between all the information over time. And I'm really happy to say that, for example, the area of personal development that I know about, one of the areas, for example, sleep. When I started looking into the idea of how important sleep was, and actually, let me pull back for a second here. The Wonder Technique is a holistic approach to personal development. When some people think about development, they're thinking about mindset, they're thinking about physical activity, they're thinking about their life purpose and that. What I've noticed over time is that everything interacts with everything else. So if people say that they have a challenge being more mindful or meditating in that, it's probably because something else in their life is out of balance. It could be nutrition, it could be sleep, it could be lack of fresh air, could be lack of hydration, lack of social interaction. Everything comes together. So in essence, the Wonder Technique is the foundation of a unified approach to health and well-being. So I bring lots of things together.
Yeah,
So,
you
and I
do.
yeah, and I can give you samples of that, but you're you're
Please,
you're, you're directing the conversation.
please. No, I want to know because I thought I saw somewhere that Wonder is an acronym,
It is.
has a
It
meaning.
is.
So
Yeah.
tell us what the acronym stands for, and then how did you come up with that name? What was the process of you going, all right, I've got a technique here?
Okay, let me give you a little bit of background. What happened was 20 years ago, actually, the Wonder Technique originated because my mom had cancer twice. And I spent a lot of time with her going around to medical appointments, helping her understand how she should apply the things that she wanted to learn. The doctors and nutritionists, naturopaths, they were all giving her lots of information. It's a very stressful experience. I'm blessed that she's still alive. She's still running her life, still, as I like to say, dancing through life. And she's an older lady now for sure, but she's really healthy now. But at that time, it was very overwhelming. And my skill set that I've learned over time, Ted, is to take complicated things and make them simple. Ever since I was a child, I can see that. And in fact, when I meet people and they tell me about their lives, it's not very difficult for me to figure out what's really their, some people will say, their why, their purpose, because I look back in time, I ask them questions about where things are, what's happened in the past, and you can see in most people's lives the connections, but it's not always so evident for the person themselves. So with the Wonder Technique, when my mom had recovered, I think she's responsible for this. She started telling people that David was involved. I mean, I wasn't the reason why she was healed. There was many other people involved. But she told people that I was really good at understanding things. And I ended up stumbling into doing some speaking engagements. In fact, the very first one was in front of 160 adolescent students in a school.
Wow.
Yes. And that one, like I ended up talking to the teacher who was in charge of the cooking class. And I was just talking to him. I met him socially with some other friends, and he said, "This is really interesting, your way of trying to put things together. I think, you know what, I could get you in to talk to my students." And of course, this was the first time speaking in front of adolescents, which are a unique part of society. They're very curious, but they're also going through a lot of change.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share with them about health and well-being and keep their attention. Like, I was like, how am I going to do this? So I did that presentation, but I was prepared because prior to it, I'd been looking at all the information that I'd learned over the years. Now, my background in university is in psychology, but what I learned in psychology is not the wonder technique, but it was my interest in social psychology, how people learn. And what I decided to do was put everything together in a manner that makes it easier for people to actually learn. So over time, I've worked with people. I know because they've told me their age. The oldest was 88, the youngest was 6. So
Wow.
in terms of the range of people, because things are actually, your listeners may or may not agree with me, and I'm open to questions and comments, is that I find things in life are really quite simple when we get down to it. And we
Sure.
have a resistance as humans to simplicity. Not sure why, that I don't know.
That would have been my next question.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, in relationships, a key factor is that you will end up with conflict unless you have conversation. Communication is a key. It's very, very simple, but is a fundamental part. We're in a world right now where there's challenges that are going on, and if we don't have conversation about what's going on, there's only going to be more conflict.
Amen to that. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
So it's a massive, such a simple thing. I mean, even like I say to people, you know what, when you see people, the simple things of greeting people, saying hello to them, you build a rapport. This is part of something we enjoy, and each culture has a way of representing it. So I've always looked down on what's the simple thing. So you asked about the wonder technique. The wonder technique is a mixture of ideas like, and I really want to touch on this because I read today more people saying what I believe is incorrect information about sleep. And this is going to be really, really important. It's about sleep. It's about exercise. It's about nutrition. It's about being outdoors, about hydration. But to mention, because I know we don't have too much time, this sleep issue, a lot of people think that sleep is not important still. And
Why is that? I think it's so important, yet sometimes it's elusive for
yes.
me.
Okay, what I will do, I'll give it reasons why sleep is important. And then I'm going to give some tools to yourself and to the listeners that they may or may not have, how to get a better night's sleep and how to wake up as well. Because I mean, I created a workbook and a course called How to Sleep Well and Wake Up Energized. And there's some things in there that people will never have thought of. And I want people that are listening to map this on the idea that when you sleep well, you become more creative. When you sleep well, your mind is more clear, your memory is better. When you sleep well, you'll be able to be more mindful of what's going on around you. When you sleep well, you benefit more from the nutrition that you're absorbing into your body. You'll also, if you read Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep, in that book, he talks about our fertility as human beings is damaged when we don't sleep properly. Our longevity is destroyed because there is a functionality of sleep. And one of the things, for example, very simple, if people are thinking about this now, I don't know how many people have this habit, but I'll put it out there. When we are in the state of mind that we are right now, we're awake, we're in a certain level of cognition. As we move into sleep, we move into what's called non-REM sleep, which is non-dream sleep. And then we move into dream sleep, which is the REM sleep. What's really important to know about that is on the day, like right now, people that are listening, everybody's listening to, well, I hope people are listening to what we're saying, right? You know,
Right.
hopefully they haven't tuned out already.
No,
But
no, no.
you're taking in information all the time, right? As we move into sleep, we go through a stage where basically the brain is pruning the information and looking for what's important. It's getting rid of the garbage, right? It's like going through what's important here, get rid of the packaging. I need the stuff that's inside. The next level is the REM sleep, where our minds start to integrate stuff into our memories. This is a process that happens every night. But for example, if people drink alcohol before they go to sleep, some people, you know, the old story of a nightcap, if you've ever heard of it, they will damage the
Not
ability.
me.
No, they damage the ability. They will damage the ability to have REM sleep. So the consolidation of memory is interrupted. So that just that one thing can make people think,
Interesting.
Yeah. And as well, we suppress our ability to go asleep. I'm going to share some ideas that have a twofold effect here. When we stimulate our body later in the day, whether it's from caffeine or whether it's from exercise, our body seems to, we think in our minds that we're not tired. Okay. But in fact, we've actually got a buildup of what's called sleep pressure. Sleep pressure is our need to sleep. That's a biological need, but we don't feel it. And the best example I can give to your audience is if somebody drinks coffee, that's fine if they drink coffee, but all of a sudden, maybe they drink a cup of coffee, they feel good, so second cup of coffee through the day, and then later in the day, all of a sudden, they don't have any more caffeine in their system, and they feel like they've hit a wall, and they just feel like
Right.
they're going to collapse. That's because the caffeine suppresses what's called sleep pressure. Our awareness of our need for sleep is suppressed by the caffeine.
Oh. Huh.
So then basically when it moves away, it's like, whoa, I'm tired. I need to go to sleep. And then that's why people almost want to collapse. So
Fascinating.
we're not aware of something that we are actually in need of. So there's multiple different things that can impact our sleep. Now, simple little tips. I promise that people may have heard this. So maybe it's just a reassurance for them. Having a good night's sleep depends on the room temperature. The temperature shouldn't be too cold, shouldn't be too hot. 16, 17 degrees Celsius, because you're running on Celsius, right, in the US, right? Is that correct?
Oh no, we're Fahrenheit.
Oh, we're Fahrenheit. Oops, pardon me. So then we're up around 60, between, I think about 66. So you're in, because I got two systems in my brain here. So the room temperature shouldn't be too warm because your body cools down and it needs to cool down to go to sleep. But for example, a little trick, some people find they can't go to sleep because they have cold feet. If you have cold feet, it's okay to wear a loose pair of fitting of socks, right? That helps. But there's also something else really important. Something that turns on sleep is the body's onset of melatonin. Some people might be aware of this, but it's a natural chemical that occurs in our body, but it engages our desire for sleep. Okay, it's the kind of like, right, let's start everything into flow. But you can offset the flow of melatonin by blue light, which is our computers, all those different systems that we have digital. The second thing is that when we were going to sleep at night, we need to be in a dark room. Now, some people, if they sleep in a room with somebody else who doesn't like to be in the dark for whatever reason, you might need to cover your eyes, because we are very sensitive to light as human beings. It's actually part of our biological setup. So we actually are, with light, it triggers us to be alert. We're not worried about wild animals and things anymore. So when you want to go to sleep, you need to be pitch dark. It needs to be a dark room. Okay, so that can really improve people. Very simple things. The right room temperature and being in a room that's completely dark can enable your ability to get a good night's sleep. Now, in the morning, if you want to be alert, focused, moving away from sleep, one of the most important things you can do, and this would tie into the Wonder Technique, of course, is to get outside. And even if it's raining, you still need to get natural light. A lot of people now are working from home, or people have moved through COVID and stuff. They work from home. They might be inside all day. It's really, really important to actually get outside and get some natural light. It's very different from the incandescent light bulb or other forms of light that we have in our home. So, and it will change your alertness because it shuts off the melatonin.
I love it. I did not know that. Fascinating stuff. You think you know everything about sleep and what is prohibiting it or making it difficult. I didn't know some of those facts. That's interesting.
Yeah. And one last thing on that, but not to make too much a conversation about sleep or to drive people to sleep, is that the myths out there about, for example, Thomas Edison, Edison was a great inventor. He was, he over 1,000 different patents he created. But Edison always said he only slept like 4 hours a night. But if you go online, and I suggest people go online and look for information in the National Art Gallery about Thomas Edison, you will see that in his workshop, in his office, you will find napping cots, sleeping cots. He used to nap a lot. Now, this is a secret weapon that he had because he understood something else, which is another part of the Wonder Technique. It's separate to sleep, but you'll see how they come together. What happens, Ted, is that people, when you're trying to solve a problem, a lot of times, you're thinking about it, you don't have a solution, but you want to move it from your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, this incredible system that knows so much more than what's going on. And what Edison knew, that if he had a problem to solve, if he thought about the problem and he lay down and went and had a nap, he had his subconscious mind working on the problem. Like he was way ahead of modern day science, understanding
Yeah.
why this works. So this is kind of like the people who have the eureka feeling when they have a shower,
Yeah.
or people when they stop worrying about something and they go for a run or to do something. But sleep is actually a way of getting inside your mind. And this here, I know I'm doing a lot of talking here, but I'd like to share with
No, I
people.
love it. Please.
Okay, okay. I like to share with people. It's on the same line, but it shows the importance of sleep and helping change your life, especially if you're dealing with a lot of stress. And this is something that never goes away. We're going through stressful times right now, but your ability to manage stress is going to make the difference. It's not the elimination of stress in your life. And I do the following routine in my life, a certain protocol that I developed, and I encourage my clients to do it and everybody else listening. It's all about how you frame your day. Okay, the things you do first thing in the morning and last thing at night are really, really important. Because when you understand how the brain is functioning, is we're in right now what's called beta, which is like our everyday level, not to get too scientific about it. Well, as we move into sleep, we go through what's called alpha and then theta. Now, the best way of describing those states is by the description of how we feel. That kind of dazy, kind of hazy, foggy feeling as we drift into sleep. Does that ring a bell? That
Yeah.
kind of groggy feeling. That's as we
Absolutely.
move through. This is actually, that's a moment in time when we actually have a doorway that's opening to our subconscious mind, because we're transitioning through different levels of sleep. People who are very good, and it's not so many people are really, really good at meditation. A lot of people practice, hence the meditation practice. But to get to that deep level of theta is very hard. But as we go asleep, we move through it. And I remind people to be the guard at the door of their mind, that when you're going to sleep at night, it's really important what you're thinking about as you drift into sleep. And the first thing in the morning, it's really important as well. Okay. So what my consciousness is now, and really, I mean, I've been doing the Wonder Technique for 20 years, but it's like an onion. I've been peeling off all the unessential parts, and I've learned more and more about how things really work. And one of the things is what I'm sharing with you today, the frame of the day. And I really, really brought it into my life in the last about 2.5 years. And part of it is like, for example, I was involved in a rock climbing accident 6 years ago, and I couldn't walk for 6 months. And in 2018, I completed my first marathon. And that was really a psychological test for myself, because I'm not a runner, but I wanted to know, would it be possible? Was I healed enough? But a large part of my training was here.
Sure.
And what I did is part of, I would say, okay, let's give an example here for people if they don't want to run a marathon. It's like, in the morning, as you're waking up, you're going to sleep at night. If there's something you're struggling with, you want to visualize what you want to have happen. If, for example, every time you interact with somebody, you have a challenge in communication, this can happen for sure. You want to visualize the way you want this to go. You want to see you communicating with the person without you getting stressed. Of course, we cannot control another person, but we can control ourselves. That's the only person we can control. So we think about ourselves remaining calm, and whatever they act the way they are, but we feel calm. In the past, we've never had this experience. We're always getting wired and reacting. So as you're going to sleep at night, you visualize this happening. You see it as real, and you're teaching your subconscious mind, this is the way you want to behave. First thing in the morning, you do the exact same thing. Now, you can use this in any different part of your life you want to improve. But what you're doing is you're training your body to feel a certain state of experience. Now, in addition to that, I'm very, very conscious of the fact, and actually, I didn't know we were going to go this way, but here, like if you can see here, these are notebooks. Each day, I write down what I'm grateful for first thing in the morning. And it can be just as simple as the fact that I breathe. It's like this morning, I've got another great day. My children are healthy. It's not important. It's not like I've won a marathon. It's nothing. It's not going to be a big deal. This is where people are confused a little bit about gratitude, and no disrespect, is that they think that they can only be grateful for massive things. But what happens, Ted, is you're grateful for the small things. Your mind is focused on the good things.
I agree.
And we don't have enough time to talk about it, but I've gone through, like a lot of people probably listen to this, dark moments in my life. Like when, really quickly, I'll skip through when my dad passed away, then my mother-in-law died just shortly after, and she was the reason why I came to France. I was in 2 car accidents after that, then the rock climbing fall. All this stuff happened in just a couple of years. And it was like I was rolling downhill.
Wow.
And where was my focus? My focus was on everything horrible that was happening in my life.
Right.
And I finally switched in my own brain that, David, you got to change your focus, because even when and this is important, we all have loving friends that we talk to. But if we talk to our wonderful friends about the bad experience we're having, as we vocalize this, Ted, we're reinforcing our memory of that bad experience. This is very important for people to understand. So my great friends, I said to them one day, I started saying, you know what? No, I'm not going to talk anymore about those things. Yes, I know they were difficult, but if my focus is always on them, I'm going to be thinking about them. I'm going to be attracting more problems into my life.
Such
I
a
made
powerful thing, but it's true.
Oh, it's so true. And so I practice daily, first thing in the morning, last thing at night. I run through this in my brain. I'm aware of that if I go to sleep at night, and this is okay, if I fall asleep dreaming about something positive I want to have happen, it's okay to fall asleep when you're dreaming about something positive, right? It's not, I mean, if you dream about great things, this is good. But you want to make sure that you're not importing into your brain. And this is a moment in time where we've gone through a lot of stuff and we continue in the world. If the last thing you take into your brain is information from the media or for friends that's not something you want to hear about, that's stressful, unfortunately, it's going in. And you have
and it
to.
sits there and it festers, right? I mean, it's just it just because I'm guilty of it. So when we're sharing this, I think David would agree. We've both been guilty, probably more times than we can count, of not
Yes.
following that advice.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you all day long, be grateful, have a gratitude journal, focus on the positive, start your morning positive. And there are days where I wake up grumpy Ted, and there is just I'm there, I'm in the moment. So guys, don't beat yourself up
No,
because
for
you
sure.
can't do it perfectly every time, or the first time, or the first 10 times.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
powerful what you're saying.
It is. And it's all about, I mean, our lives are actually a practice. You know, our lives are practice in the sense we're blessed as long as we have the opportunity to live to always restart again. I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book, Pieces Every Step. It's one of my favorite books. And he said in there about every day is a brand new 24 hours. And if we can take that risk to say, okay, life is not good right now, but how can I restart my day differently? And accept yourself for the fact that, okay, so I woke up and I'm not feeling so good. How can I? Now it takes effort. Like, I mean, 3 years into doing this protocol, and I've seen incredible positive things in my life, it takes me effort to do it.
Sure.
That effort doesn't go away, you know, but I think that once you're moving towards something positive in your life, you're going to get good results. And once you give up, you're going to start going backwards. And it's very easy, like in a river, to end up flowing backwards, unfortunately.
It's so easy to, and also you mentioned it earlier, that your environment, you have to remember that if you also wake up, there's a whole environment out there that you may be positive Ted, and I walk out and I'm in the middle of arguing whomever, or somebody's
Yeah.
not upset about this. And
Yes.
so it's not that you're going to be Pollyanna all day. It's that you
No, for
started your
sure.
day that way,
Yeah.
and you just have to bring it back, like you said.
Exactly. And this is why I talk about framing your day. If you take those first few moments in the day to frame it as you want it to be, and then you end it the way you want it to be, you have control over that. Whatever happens in between, the storm in your life may not be what you desire, but at least it gives you focus. Because unfortunately, I've had the experience in my life in the past where every day seems to blur into another day. It just seems to go. And once I firmly decided to take action and make sure I don't get out of bed until I've ran through this in my head, right? Until I've taken the time to write down some focus about being positive, I just say no. My day doesn't start. So I'm committed to that. And the same thing at the end. I mean, there's so much more that I can share, but these are just some fundamental things for
Well,
people
I
to
want you to
understand.
come back because we've already run out of time. So I
Oh
want you,
boy.
I would be honored for you to come back and share more.
My
I love
pleasure.
this conversation. I love any kind of, see, this is the nugget I was talking about. You had
Yes.
a lot of nuggets in
Yes.
there. All right. So what's the best way if somebody's interested in learning more, wants to talk to you, wants to engage with you, what's the best way for them to reach out, David?
Thank you for this opportunity, Ted. And actually, I will share the wondertechnique.com. The wondertechnique.com, just as it sounds, is my website. Lots of information there. I've been writing a newsletter for years and years, but I do have, if anybody subscribes, they'll get 2 ebooks that I've written that there's not fluff inside. These are actionable steps inside of them. And also they will get a template that I'm really happy to share with people that are little mini motivational cards that were inspired by my dad before he passed away, because he was somebody that was always making quotes.
Love
And
that.
so if people hop over to my website, they can learn more about my work, the online program, etc. But they will get them just by subscribing if they wish, or just learn more about my
Fantastic.
work. It's the best
Thank you
place.
for taking time out and being flexible and sharing with us. That was awesome. I could talk about that, just that one little bit of that topic for hours. So I
Yes.
would love for you to come back. Thank you, David Hennessey, so much for
Thank you very
taking
much,
time
Ted. It was
out.
my honor. And to everybody, have yourself a wonderful day. Thanks very
Yep,
much.
everybody have a good one. We'll be back. Mwah. Appreciate everyone else's flexibility too, but
Take care.
especially the guy who's what, 5, 6 hours ahead of me. Thanks, David,
Hey,
so
take care.
much.
Thanks again.